You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Okay, we're going to get started for Town of Branford public hearings for the budget for fiscal 24, fiscal 25, which begins in July 1st of 2024. And tonight we'll listen to various presenters and departments with regards to the Public Services Committee, the Ways and Means Committee, and the Administrative Services Committee. We will recess and then meet again tomorrow night. We'll recess and then meet again on Thursday night, at which point the Board of Finance will close the public hearings for the budget process. The board will then again meet on April 1st to cut the budget and recommend that budget to the representative town meeting. They will conduct their public hearings and their hearings and committee votes and such, and then recommend a budget back to the Board of Finance. We will finalize the revenues and set the mill rate sometime during May. So with that, the budget requests in total for 24-25 are $138,163,711. That's the request from the various departments, including Board of Ed, which represents a 5.8% increase in expenditures. The budget also includes an estimated revenue of $119,923,000, which would leave a amount to be raised from taxation of $119,923,000, which equates at this point to a mill rate of 31.43, or a 1.5 increase in the mill rate, or a 5% increase in taxation. Again, this is an estimate, and it'll likely change before the process is finalized. The expenditures include town and Board of Ed, and operating increase for the town side of 5.8%, and a 4.7% request for Board of Education. With that, we'll begin the presentations with engineering on page 42. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Good to see everybody again. Would you like to say what the highlights?
Yes.
Okay. Personnel services, we've got a seemingly large increase at 8.4%. Those are contractual. We have two contracts actually that were up and have since been modified. So no new personnel at all. It's just contractual increases.
Okay.
Moving down to the other line, we're increasing travel and memberships, conferences, and meetings, both by $250. We got 3 people in the department now. We're seeing a good thing. We're seeing them interested in attending some more conferences and things like that to kind of further their learning. And that takes care of the operating.
So maybe just explain a little further the regular salaries and wages increase of 10%.
Sure. So under the regular wages and salaries, we've got the assistant town engineer, civil design engineer, and the 2 admins that work under me. All their contracts are new now. So you're seeing, I believe it was 2 years, for the 2 fiscal years that it's taken to come up. So. And there is one increase, I believe the land use customer service coordinator that salary was increased through negotiation. So you'll see that big jump there, about 26%. And that includes the kind of the 2-year look back, bring that salary up.
Okay, questions on this engineering budget?
Good. All set, Joe.
Any questions from the public or RTM members? Okay, I think we're all set on that. You have capital items as well?
Yes, always at capital. Leave my page 3 on the capital. We begin with the ADA transition plan for rights of ways.
Okay, 3, which is in the back. There's a new set of numbering further on. 8, that's the ADA transition plan for right-of-ways.
Correct.
Okay. And that's a $35,000 request?
$35,000. So each town in Connecticut is required to have a transition plan, really identifying where within the town there may be barriers to those with disabilities, various disabilities. The town does not currently have a transition plan, so we certainly want to make sure that we're complying with that requirement. So this would fund kind of a continuation of a walkability study that we started with SCROG, completed with SCROG this last year, identifying where we have sidewalk gaps, and we'll kind of get to the sidewalk capital in a little bit, but identify gaps in non-compliant ADA ramps, things like that within the right-of-way. So this will continue that effort to really identify those areas. The transition plan essentially is it's not stating, you know, in years 1 through 3 we're going to do these projects. It's more of, you know, identifying the deficiencies and creating a path forward. So there's no set timeline on when you need to become fully compliant. Obviously each town is different, and we certainly have our fair share of sidewalks within town, so it does take time to get to compliancy, but the plan is giving a path, showing a path that we're working towards being compliant.
Okay. And then who pays for the actual construction?
Construction would be, that's our second ask is our capital sidewalk improvement plan. So the town funds it in various means up to you and the RTM. And I would fund these improvements to our sidewalks throughout town. So if you want me to jump right into that next capital one.
Okay. So in that request, you're asking for 100,000?
Correct. So last 2 years, we've asked for some capital sidewalk monies. DPW has some limited funds on really more of, you know, they get a complaint or they notice some areas in the neighborhood that needs, you know, maybe 10 feet of sidewalk here, 30 feet of sidewalk there. This is more of the capital sidewalk program, so we're looking at much larger projects, anywhere from $30,000 to up to $100,000 in projects. We've been average, the last couple of years, we've been about $75,000 in capital projects through this sidewalk program, the previous allocations. East Main Street being one of them, we're kind of by Deeks. We've made some sidewalk gap connections, and it kind of goes back to that previous walkability study that I referenced. Looking at gaps in the network, looking at large-scale improvement plans to sidewalks that don't really fall under DPW's budget. We've been able to utilize the monies that have been appropriated so far to do these major projects. So one thing we are changing in the ask this year is that we're adding the transit amenities to that program. We're looking at benches at some of the bus stops, mainly around Route 1, where we're seeing increased activity since COVID. We've seen a lot more ridership, not as much as New Haven or one of the cities, but we are noticing a lot of people in those morning and evening rushes using transit a little bit more often. So we're looking, really kind of adding that in there to add benches in key locations, as well as, we've identified a couple locations where shelters may be appropriate, because they do have a relatively higher ridership. So.
Okay. So that's the 100,000 each year over a period of years, totaling 500,000.
Correct.
Okay. Questions on?
Question, Joe.
Sure.
John, so regarding the sidewalks on East Main, that's a state road, but we're responsible for the sidewalks?
Correct, yeah. We try to get, anytime the state does a major project, like the bridge reconstruction right there, they added in a certain amount of sidewalks as part of their project. We always ask them to add in sidewalks if
Right.
they are willing to. But anywhere else in town along the state right away, they're not putting in sidewalks for us.
Thank you.
And ultimately, even when they install them,
Mhm.
the town is still responsible for the maintenance.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the local traffic, these are yours as well, the traffic
Yes, sir.
authority.
Yep.
LTA projects.
Yes, so previously we had a pretty big backlog of LTA products. These are requests that come through the local traffic authority, through the police commission. Those projects were being approved, but with no funding source. So DPW, again, we've got a smaller sidewalk budget in their capital program. Weren't really able to make those improvements that were approved by the LTA. Previous years, we've been asked for $25,000 a year. We're dropping that down to 15. We're seeing a lot less requests and maybe less requests approved through the LTA. And this covers anything from speed humps that may be approved to crosswalks. We currently have a crosswalk at Tool Drive on Indian Neck Avenue. It's long-standing. We're finally going to get that done. But some of these projects, like crosswalks, mid-block crosswalks, we want to get. If you're familiar with where the Shoreline Greenway Trail crosses Pine Orchard Road, there's that flashing light system. It's called an RFB. Those are 20 grand a piece for each time we put one of those in. So Tool Drive would likely get one of those. We've got another request for Brushy Plain Road up by Vets Park. That's another one that would get an RFB. We want to make sure the traffic sees people that are trying to cross. So there are a couple of big ticket items, which is why we're still continuing to ask for this.
Okay, questions on this? MS4.
So MS4 is the separate storm sewer permit that we have. It's a statewide permit. The town is mandated through this permit to reduce, they say to practical extent, 1% disconnection of impervious areas every year through the life of the permit. The permit's actually expired, but they've continued it another year. They're probably going to come out with a new permit this upcoming year. I'm not quite sure what the requirement's going to be then, but we're anticipating that they're going to still continue this requirement that we disconnect 1% of our impervious areas throughout town. So that includes private development, public development. We're looking at low-hanging fruit where we can, as a town, disconnect, because we just can't rely on, if you get a single-family house that redevelops it, they're not disconnecting anything, it's not required to. So we're looking at town-owned properties, for instance, the small parking lot on Hillside, and maybe by home, actually the old Dar Bar. Maybe we can capture some of that water in rain gardens and keep it from coming into the storm sewer system, treat it for the heavy metals and the debris that's coming off that first flush. So prior to this ask, we haven't had any money. Last year we did ask for some improvements at Vets Park. That's getting close to ready for bid. But we don't have any monies in our current budget to kind of deal with this. We've been working on a limited basis on how we can do things in-house. We're looking at, now we're running out of those easy projects, and so we're looking for funding to undertake some more.
Okay. And last but not least, your trolley bridge.
Trolley Bridge, you probably remember being on our ask list for a while. We did fund the initial design engineering for work underneath the bridge. The design work is complete, it's permitted, almost permitted through DEP. We have our Army Corps engineering permit. We've since kind of increased the scope as we thought about the project. We know with the work that we want to do underneath the bridge, we're likely going to have to close the trail. And we know that the bridge itself needs a lot of work. In the OpenGov attachments, I don't know if you were able to view those, but you know, that bridge is an old metal trestle bridge. It's been subject to salt for 100 years. When we finally went underneath there to look at it, it's in pretty poor shape. Needs a lot of structural repairs to it. As well as anyone who's ever crossed the bridge, you know that that's a very narrow plank bridge. It's constantly under maintenance and needs maintenance. We're looking with this funding to increase the scope of the overall project, where it would fund structural repair, structural design, for the repairs to the bridge itself, as well as design a much wider plank. DPW will be able to get a skid steer over it to be able to maintain the trail a little easier, give better emergency access for that trail system up until you hit the big boardwalk that goes through the marshes. So this would fund design and construction, anticipate of both below the bridge and the top side of the bridge. So it would be the boardwalk and the structural repairs to the bridge. We are looking for grants. We've applied a couple times for grants and haven't been given them. It's kind of a tough project to fit into, you know, a lot of these grants, because they're looking at resiliency. They're looking at, you know, right now we submitted on a trails grant with the Shoreline Greenway Trail, trying to use their expertise and their name to kind of get a little bit better of a chance to get some of these competitive grants. But if we're unable to get the grant, we still want to move forward this bridge. We don't want to lose this historic asset for the town.
Got it. Okay, John, it's a good presentation. Questions from RTM members with regards to the capital items? Frank, if you can come up here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Frank Toohill, 1st District, RTM. I just wanted to speak in support of the trolley trail bridge. It's kind of expensive, but I just wanted to point out to everybody that it's constantly in use. All kinds of people are always using that. Like early in the morning, you see them. Noon, even in the evenings. It gets a lot of traffic. It's a great recreational feature in Branford, and it's also a great idea to expand the scope, because it's, as John said, currently the bridge is very, very narrow, and I don't even think the bridge can currently take like 2 people, I mean, that's how, it's only, about 2 feet wide, right, John?
It's a bit wider, but it's definitely not, it's not ADA compliant.
No, no, absolutely not, yeah. Okay, so that was my point on that. And then, Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask a question, please, on the operating?
Sure.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted, again, to ask about, if you look at page 85 of your book, you'll see what, you'll see what the pay is there. And there's 3, increases, which I wanted to just ask about. There's an increase of 24%, there's an increase of 23%, and a raise of about 25.9%. What's that all about? That's from the union contract, or?
Correct, yeah, so those are through the bargaining units. You see there's 2 different unions, the Town of Branford employees.
Yep.
And the Town Hall union. So both of those contracts were negotiated recently.
Yep.
And wrapped up and ratified. The one, as I said, I believe on this one, it's the Community Development Admin Assistant. That salary was brought up through negotiations. And the rest of them are through the negotiation process of the, I believe it was 2 years that they were out of contract.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of bringing it back up to speed.
All right.
Jamie, you want to comment on that?
I would just also add, one of those positions, also they increased the number of hours from
Okay.
in the work week. I think it went from,
Yeah, actually,
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I think they were also at 90 or 95%, kind of that step.
Oh, the
so
step
to speak.
system.
Yeah, so
All right.
previous years, it would have been, 90% of the full salary.
Okay,
So
I
you're
see.
seeing that jump as well, that it's coming up to 95 and then 100%. So,
I see.
yeah.
Okay, that explains it then. Thank you very much, John. Thank you, Mr. First Selectman.
All set? Thank you. Any other questions from John, our engineer? All set? Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public? Thanks, John.
All right, thank you.
Next up is Public Works, page 39.
Sure.
Gary, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Gary.
Okay, total request is $2,822,699. Increase of $91,900. Want to hit the high spots?
Yes, personnel budget, there's really not much of an increase, total of 2.7%. The regular wages and salaries only, it's a 2.5% increase, contractual agreement. And overtime is a recommended 0.2% increase. That's really the only changes for the personnel. Moving down to non-personnel, I have a few points that I'd like to speak on. Uniform and clothing allowance, that's up $2,979. The reason for this increase is Public Works has absorbed the transfer station part of that budget, their clothing allowance, so we're handling that. So the increase is the extra guys to clothe, and also the contractual boot allowance and vendor increases. Professional development, we raised it $1,500. This is, we decreased the budget from membership and conferences, and we added some of that money to this account. The increased budget for professional development was due to vendor increases, planned CDL Class A training, planned group training such as OSHA 10, forklift operation, bucket truck certification, highway mastery classes. Utilities, water, gas, and electric. That's another account that Public Works has absorbed from transfer station, plus a recommended 2% increase. Other fuels, same. There's an increase on that, which is $25,957. That again, we absorbed from the transfer station budget. There's $22,500 transferred into the DPW budget, and another 2% recommended increase. Let's see, street lights is a recommended 2% increase. Equipment rental was increased $1,320 for some upcoming projects that will require some heavy equipment rental. Also, quarterly floor scrubber rental for the shop, for shop maintenance, and other miscellaneous attachments for our new skid steer that we purchased recently. Other supplies, small 2.5% increase, just reflected on increases, vendor increases, and also, road materials. Let me just jump back. Road materials, we took $5,500 out of the road materials account, and we took that $5,500 and we put it into the drainage account. Right? We do a lot of drainage work, and we like to keep our yard stocked and keep moving on with all the drainage components and everything. They're quite expensive. So That pretty much is, the only other thing I would say is equipment. Actually, the equipment account went down. I'm sorry. Yeah, we had, last year we had purchased 4 portable radios. But after we did purchase them, we still see the need that we need probably 2 mounted radios for our equipment.
Okay.
So we're keeping a little bit of money in that, a little
Okay.
bit more money in that.
All right, very good. Questions from the board on this operating budget? Questions from RTM members, members of the public? Okay, capital items, I think start on page 28, the new 28, or second 28. ADA ramps, I think is your first one, Gary?
Yeah, the ADA ramps is a continuation of what we've been doing. We request $20,000 per year on average. I know John had talked about the ADA ramps. Also, we've been doing this too for the past couple of years, is just try to upgrade some of our ADA ramps that we come across. We always talk it out with engineering,
Right,
try to
right.
get on the same page. So that's going to remain the same, $20,000 per year to continue that program.
See that? What about the apparatus fund?
Apparatus, we requested $225,000 this year, $250 a year 2026, and projected $250 through '28. And 2029, we'd be asking for $300,000. It's sustainable. We've got a nice fleet. We keep it rolling. We've got a lot of nice equipment and we're working.
Okay. And what would you be buying this year?
This year, sorry, I have to adjust my eyes here. We've purchased a lot in the past couple of years, so we're looking at a large truck possibly, and also for a transfer station, we're in need of a roll-off, but we'll be purchasing a used roll-off, and we're budgeting about $150,000 for a used roll-off, a decent one that'll service up there, to get enough years out. It's not that it's an over-the-road truck. We will use it over the road, but we just need it for jockeying dumpsters around, roll-offs around. We'll also purchase another F-550 Ford. We've been having good luck with those trucks. They've been treating us well, so we're going to continue with that. And this past year, we've purchased a roller, an F-550, a bunch of other smaller things, roll-offs. Actually, purchased an Equinox town fleet, a couple of dumpsters, miscellaneous. And we also just upgraded, we traded in our old skid steer for a new model.
That's in this card here.
Yeah.
Okay, and downtown center maintenance.
We'll keep that the same at $25,000, please. This is just usual tree maintenance, planting, removal, stump grinding, maintenance of benches, lights, trash cans, sidewalks, holiday decorations, plantings.
Okay. And then road improvement and resurfacing.
Road improvement, requested $550,000. Continue our road resurfacing program.
And how far is that going to go?
How far? Not far. We paying $108 per ton for asphalt, so.
108.
108 now, yeah. It's only been a few years back, we were paying 86.
And how many tons per mile, basically?
That's a hard question, because all roads are different.
You used to be able to tell us how many miles you were going to pave.
I used to be able to?
Yeah.
Well, I don't like to.
All right. I won't hold you to it.
Put it to you this way, we're,
You're doing what you can.
We're doing Indian Neck Avenue, and that's a reclaim, actually, that's
Yep.
coming up, and we have a lot, we're gonna blow, with the surrounding neighborhoods, will be close to $1 million right there.
Got it.
So, okay, so it's a combination of reclaim neck, but then milling, like, Terhune, Tool, Weir, Barker, Field.
Yeah.
That's close to $1 million right there.
Okay. That's Indian Neck Ave, you said? James?
Yeah, because I know this comes up area, I just want to add to it, because it really also set the expectations. It is very, listen, I've heard many presentations, I see other towns, we're going to do X amount of miles, or this budget will cover X amount of miles a year. The town, a number of years ago, undertook a study where they did an evaluation. There's many different maintenance and reconstruction in terms of recommendations in terms of maintaining roads. So to kind of give a number on how much you'll do one year really does truly vary road by road. So even I know last year in certain roads, and they'll really look at it. I know Gary, working with the vendor, will look at, they'll do a mill and pave on one section, and then if it really needs it, they'll do the full reclaim. So those, you're gonna have some great variations in terms of the cost for that work. I think really what they strive to do, and I believe Public Works working with engineering, I believe they budgeted it last year, and I think it may be in the request with the street scan we did. Yeah, you have that. So that's a very good program that evaluates the road. But I think that what we are striving to do is really look for a sustainable plan, something that we can continue to fund so to kind of avoid those high spikes in the future. It's important for the public to know that this is not our only funding source for road paving. So I just want to clip.
Thanks, James. Seawall repair?
Seawall repair, again, just a continuation, just reclaiming, resetting stones on seawalls. Asking for $45,000, and I think we should just remain flat.
So we're just planning?
What's that?
We're just planning for those?
No. No, this is an actual construction.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, no, we do sections, like say down Branford Point, we do sections of seawall yearly.
Okay, I think the section that it's under, Catherine, says planning on our version.
Yeah, it's really construction.
It's really construction. I was going to say, you're going to do planning a lot. A lot of planning. Okay. What's that?
The department's answer with the new system.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. And then sidewalks. Oh, we're planning sidewalks too.
Construction.
I'm kidding. Don't get nervous. All right, so you're asking for $65,000 on sidewalk construction as well?
That's correct. Another continuation.
Gotcha. And then storm system, the CCTV?
This is actually, so this is, we asked last year for one section, we were gonna start, it's gonna go out to bid very soon. And this is a continuation. This is actually, so this is another section of town that needs to be cameraed, inspected, in preparation for total road reconstruction.
And this is outsourced?
Yeah.
Okay. That's $45,000, and then there's a town line striping.
Yes.
Is $50,000. That's an ongoing project, program.
Yes. And we're just trying to, you might see some of the roads around town, like say Alps Road actually has double lines, fog lines. It's a means of traffic calming. It was requested by PD also.
Right.
So we're working on line striping a lot of the roads in town, upgrading them, going from single line to double line. Actually, single line isn't really proper.
It's not code anymore?
No, so, but trying to, with like, say we do Indian Neck Avenue, we've added more ADA compliant ramps. With that, we're gonna have more crosswalks too, so we're just adding more and more and more.
Right. Okay, questions from the board on capital items? Questions from RTM members or members of the public in regards to capital items or overall the public works budget? All set, Gary, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, you had the question? I didn't see, we got two people, sorry about that.
What's that?
You're next.
Wasn't in the line of vision
Oh,
there.
docs.
Hi, John Hartwell, RTM District 5.
Sure.
Just a quick question on the sidewalks. Are we talking, is that new construction money, or is that money to repair and replace sidewalks that are needing that?
We're repairing, so you're talking for the
Sidewalks.
capital, that's the
Yeah,
65,000?
yes,
It's a little of both.
a little
It's a
bit.
little of both, yeah. We do repairs, we try to locate bad sections. A lot of it could be complaint driven or whatever, or what we see, we go around and identify areas that need replacement.
Okay, so just a comment, we saw some really nice sidewalk repair in Indian Neck this past year, leading up to Foot Park area. Very nice job, thank you very much, and I'd like to see a lot more of that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Not, we'll move on. Thanks, Gary. Or Gary,
I forgot,
which one?
I think spreadsheet, I forgot docks and recreation,
Oh, we can do docks. Yep, next up is docks and recreation.
which.
Page 48. Let's just get to that in a second. I'll be right with you. Page 48, you're asking for $21,702. Correct?
Now I'm messed up. Docks and recreations?
Yeah, I'm showing $21,702.
Am I?
Yeah, it's $131.
Yeah. On page 48 of the front, the first 48.
Go to page 48.
48, the first 48.
My first 48?
Yes, not capital.
Didn't we go
On the
through this?
operating. The only increase is seasonal part-time help.
Yeah, $131.
Oh, yeah.
There we got you covered. All right, you did fine, Gary, thank you.
Joe, Frank's got a question.
Oh, Frank, what's
Yeah,
up?
I mean, I just wanted to know if the Stony Creek project, was completed. They were supposed to, to rebuild, some of those various structures down at the waterfront, and, I just wanted to know if that was finished.
Maybe Jamie could address that?
I'm not sure, if John was overseeing, you don't have any more, I believe he's talking about the wharf project, right?
Yes.
And we had a number of different projects,
Yes,
so I believe
exactly.
that's
The
all.
wharf project at the Stony Creek
Stony
dock?
Creek's all
Yeah,
set.
that's right, Mr. Chairman, yeah, thank you.
Yep, so, yeah, I'll sneak in here. So the concrete ramp work is all done. I believe Gary rebuilt a dock or two, one of the floating docks. And we're currently under design for the wooden wharf.
Yeah,
It doesn't need a full replacement as the Branford Point does, that's now getting underway. Branford Point that's getting all new piles, all new wood everywhere, because it's old and in bad shape. Stony Creek would need some repairs as well as the decking done, so we're coming up with some design now. Branford Point, that wharf was funded through a SHIP grant that we were able to obtain. So we're hopeful that in, a future year, with the design in place and permitting in place, that Stony Creek Wharf, we can kind of do the same, get some funding through the Connecticut Port Authority. So,
I mean, when's the work going to be done?
on the Stony Creek,
Yes, sir.
the Stony Creek, all the concrete work is done.
Yes.
And we don't even design yet for the
Oh, okay, so-
wooden part.
I see.
Yep.
Okay, then thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You got it.
Thank you, Jamie.
Okay. Next is municipal government buildings on page 27. Welcome, Brian.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I just have a couple things that changed in my budget this year. First, salaries increased by 6% due to contractual increases. Second, my fuel oil account, I raised it up by $2,000 from last year. And lastly, my purchase services went up 1.8%. And that is it.
So the total request is $1,167,997, increase of $22,762 in total. Okay. Questions from the Board of Finance on this? Questions from RTM members or members of the public? Okay, I think you're good on that, Brian. Any capital items?
No capital.
No capital? Okay, sir, you're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is animal control. We go to page 67 and 68. Yeah, thanks. Good evening.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good, thanks.
Joe?
Hey, John, how are you?
Carrie, did you get my email?
Yeah,
You got it, okay.
thank you.
So just go through the changes for you?
Sure.
Okay. So, starting under revenues, obviously the biggest change is with North Branford. And below that, you'll see the summer camp fees have an increase of $5,000. Everything else under revenue is the same. And then, under expenditures, the regular wages and salaries and the seasonal and part-time salaries are increases through the town. And the biggest change that you'll see under that is the on-call. So right now, we give the animal control officers $15 to hold their phone at night, meaning they can't leave the town. So if they're food shopping, they have to stop everything and answer the phone to go out on a call, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, whatever time they get the call. It's always been $15 for the last 15 years, but we want to increase it to $30 because that's what other animal control departments have, and also even within the town of Branford. Like other departments within the town, when they have on call, their phones are $30 a night to hold
$30 a night.
at night, yeah.
That's for the night?
It's for like, when they leave the
After
shelter.
hours.
So,
Yeah,
after
for what
hours.
period of time? Is it
5 o'clock at night until 7:30 in the morning.
Okay. And they're getting a stipend of $30.
Yeah, that's what the increase would cover.
Gotcha.
Beyond that, credit card processing fees, we are no longer using a company, so you're seeing a decrease in those. And the only other thing is other supplies, we're increasing it to just a cost increase.
So the increase from the town, from the taxation is $185,000
Yes,
mainly because of North Branford backing out and then other increases. Okay. Questions from the board?
When is North Branford out altogether?
they were out September 1st. Right.
Well,
They're gone. Yeah. Victor?
Are you still accepting credit cards?
Yes, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we changed the setup a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
And what about dog licenses?
Lisa?
So we are at 1,157. I knew you were going to ask that. We are up from prior years, year-to-date. In fact, as the past several years, we haven't broken 1,000. The increase is due to the state Department of Agriculture that oversees dog kennels and doggy daycare, overnight places, doggy rooming and boarding places. They're now required to have their dogs' proof of rabies and licensing. So now all of a sudden, people that didn't realize that licensing was state law now are required to license.
So how do we educate people at the animal shelter?
So we tend to do things on Facebook and social media. That's how we get the information out to the public. We also do little articles in the newspaper as well with Lisa.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions?
You got a question? Thanks.
Peter, come up front, please.
Thank you. Peter Black, 3rd District RTM, just through you, Joe, to Laura. With the no longer servicing North Branford, have you had a decrease in the amount of animals that you're taking in? And therefore, I mean, because you took animals in from North Branford, that was roughly a third of what you should have been taking from. So I would expect a similar, at least some reduction in the workload because you're no longer servicing about a third of your former service area. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we border all of these communities, and so animals that are being abandoned don't understand the lines and end up in our towns. So, you know, we're taking in the same, if not more, animals than we were before. And we also, I put down a couple of little fun facts because I thought there might be a question about this. So like July 2022, we had 278 visitors to the shelter. July 2023, we had 715 visitors, so that's almost 3 times as more. So right now, there's an increase in abandonment and just stray animals in general, and we're seeing an increase in people coming into the new facility as well.
Okay, thanks. So that's just Branford increases.
That's just Branford, yeah.
Thank you.
And how many animals pass through there? You know,
So
dogs, cats?
we're still brand new right now, but in years past, we always took in about 750 to 1,000 animals a year.
Total animals, yeah.
Yeah, total animals.
And there's a turnover, that's every year, and then how many do you board generally?
What do you mean board?
Like how many residents do you have now?
Like that they live there?
Well, they're
None.
there temporarily anyhow.
Yeah, I mean, they're there until they get adopted, but
Right.
everyone gets adopted. Nobody's allowed to have permanent residence there. They have to find forever homes.
Okay. Any capital items?
No.
Questions on the operating budget? Frank?
Thank you.
Good evening. Right, so as we just heard, since we did unfortunately lose, the other town, North Branford, so what you're asking for, right, it's an increase, it's an increase of 185,000, correct?
Yep.
So my question is, do you have anything in your own animal control fund right now that could be used as well, could be brought forward? How much do you have right now
I'd
in your
have to-
animal control fund, please?
I'd have to look it up. I don't know off the top of my head. We took money out of the animal control fund. The last time I looked, it was probably around $75,000 to $80,000 because we took money out to put towards the new building. So I could find out and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. Any other questions?
Joe, I got one.
Jeff?
Laura, I don't think this is your responsibility, but I ask it anyways. So the stations that are around the center of town that maintain dog refuse bags, who maintains those or fills them? Or
I believe
where'd they come from?
Works, maybe?
No, actually, those have not been.
Maintained.
Yeah.
Who put
I
them
think
in?
those- I think they were put in, I don't know if that was put in through rec department or public works years ago, but then I think we stopped maintaining them. They just
When
became.
I started
outline.
16 years ago, I think UNC requested that they be put in,
Yeah.
but what we found, we weren't responsible for maintaining them.
Right, I
We just
realize
listened
that.
at the meetings.
Right.
And what we found was people were stealing them, like hoarding them. And then they were also apparently leaving the little poopy bags like next to those things instead of taking them and physically throwing them
Correct.
out. So they stopped filling them probably, I want to say 12 years ago.
Okay, that's fine. I just, I walk by them quite a bit, see that they're empty, and I'm wondering what goes on.
Yeah, we should probably just remove the poles.
Yeah, we should.
Maybe on your next walk, give us some
All right.
locations. if
I'll
you
write
don't
them
mind.
down for you.
Yeah, all right, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions? All set then. Thank you. Next is solid waste management and recycling, page 41. Welcome.
Hello.
Page 41, the total request operating of $4,940,442, up $141,474, 2.9%. You can hit the highlights if you like.
Well, we sought to keep the costs as low as possible. We have some contractual obligations with our recycling processor, our transporter for recyclable materials, additional contractual increases for trash incineration as well as trash hauling. To the greatest extent, the increases are due to contractual obligations that we entered into last year. In addition, we have increased our expectation of the trash volume, by 2.2%, which also increases the quantity of trash to be hauled by 2.2%. And we think that's due to the fact that with the trash bins, which are relatively large, people are discarding more materials, at least for the first half of the current year. It's flattening out as we go into the second half of the fiscal year. And we anticipate that at some point the amount of trash will decrease, but the opportunity to, clean out things that had not been cleaned out for some time is probably being taken advantage of through the large gray trash carts. We've also anticipated and budgeted for a significant increase, like I want to say 20%, in the number of recycling material loads that have to be hauled.
Yeah, it's 21.62% increase.
And the reason for that, so the contract is established in such a way that recyclable material is removed from the transfer station and is compensated for based on the per load charge as called for by our staff at the transfer station. So when our roll-offs are full, our staff asks for them to be removed. I think we're getting a lot more plastic than we had in the past, and it's difficult to compact the plastic in the roll-offs, so we're getting more lightweight volume. It still has to be hauled off-site.
Right. Yeah. So it's a 21% increase in the number of loads.
Number of loads, yeah, based on lighter hauls.
Right.
And it based on increase in recycling overall that we're seeing.
We also have an increase, I'll say this year, it was blended in last year. We've added specific sub-items in our cost accounting for collection processing of leaves and yard waste or sticks. And we've added a separate function for collection of combined trash and recyclables at various parks and public places in town. Stony Creek, Town Green.
Town Green, correct.
Maybe one or two other parks.
Yeah.
So those services, with the exception of specific collection of sticks, had been included within curbside collection under our old contracts. We pulled it out, and the service is still being provided for leaves and park trash, but they're identified as a separate sub-item and subject to additional contracts which have been approved by the RTM.
Right, and that was the refuse and recycling collection.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so if you look at the refuse and recycling collection, you'll see the reduction of 251,000. That is because when refuse and recycling collection was contracted last fiscal year, it contained the recycling, hauling, and processing, which the year prior, fiscal year '23, that was actually in material handling. So we moved that item back into material handling. And that is because when we did this budget last year, the contract that we were negotiating and speaking with the potential contractor had that within the refuse and recycling collection. And then it went on that we had that back and forth, and we had to pull that item out and contract that separately, but we had the money budgeted in refuse and recycling collection. So that's why you see that deduction.
We restored it to its original budget.
Right.
Yeah, got it.
And that's why you see the large increase of $409,000 in the material handling.
Which includes the 251 going in as a transfer.
Right, and it actually includes a $350,000 increase because that section also saw a $50,000 plus increase on its own.
Okay, questions on this budget?
Yeah. In terms of their equipment going forward, are they investing in the driver-only truck?
Some neighborhoods in town have the driver-only truck in use right now.
Yeah.
We gave them the opportunity to bring the driver-only operated trucks online as they acquired them. So we do anticipate that they are going to end up with one more driver-only truck. But all of the trucks that they're using, and I can't specifically speak for Stony Creek, but they are mechanically assisted. So with the carts, they roll the cart up to a hydraulic lift that tips the carts into the curbside collection vehicle. So there's no manual labor associated with the lifting process.
Right. Yeah, in our neighborhood, I've experienced seeing it, and that you have two men, one's doing the blue bin, one's doing
Yeah.
gray-black, and they bring it over and there's a handle, and they go up and down and back.
Yep.
When it started, we had the
Yeah.
the one-man truck.
Yeah.
And
You know, they're finding where the roads are narrower and where it's difficult to back up, so
Yeah,
different
yeah.
size vehicles. But
Okay.
we anticipate having an additional, I forget the exact term,
No,
completely automated
Yeah.
collection.
Yeah, automated collection. Side load.
In service.
Side load.
I noticed they're smaller.
Automated side loader, an ASL.
So are they making more trips because the trucks are smaller? So I have, in my neighborhood, just the one-man, so it's fully automated. But they're smaller, so it seems like they're not, you can't, I live in Possum Park, you can't do the whole Possum Park at once. So are they making multiple trips?
I don't know. I mean,
Oh.
it is surprising how much material can end up in one
Right.
curbside collection vehicle.
Yeah, because they also compact in a lot of those vehicles as well. So as technology increases for collection vehicles, they'll be able to capture more and more material with eventually a smaller and smaller truck. Yeah.
It just seems like I see them coming back after they've already done a street.
It could be for you, your section means that they're doing, let's say, the recycling first, and then they come back for the solid waste. Because in the smaller areas, they can't have a truck that has two separate containers. The larger truck areas can have two separate containment areas in the truck. So that's probably why in your area.
Okay. Other questions on this? Questions from the public? Sir? Ma'am? No, ma'am.
Thank you. Tracy Everson, RTM 5th District. The blue earth recycling bins for the food scraps at the transfer station, I go there once a week with mine. They're always full. Is that helping at all reduce the waste? And if not, I would just encourage people to, it's amazing how much less garbage you can create if you collect your food scraps separately.
Right, so the Blue Earth gets picked up weekly. There is a possibility that you happen to hit it on the time when it is just happens to be full. I do know that they're picked up weekly. I can make a note to look into it and make sure that they're picked up on a steady basis. The other thought is we are also looking into possibly providing a purchasing program for compost bins at people's houses. So that will be another element of compost. I think this upcoming year, I'm going to be looking into food waste a lot, and that's kind of next online for the solid waste budget.
That would be great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Hi, John Hartwell, RTM 5. Just a quick question here. I haven't been involved with this in the past, so I don't know the history. But the line condo association rebate was in 2023 actual around 400,000, and it moved up to 658,000, and it's staying similar this year. But I just wondered what that actually is, what that line item is.
Sure, so that goes directly with the curbside collection. This is a rebate that we provide to condo units on a per unit basis. So essentially, this current year, I believe the number was 178.64 is what essentially each town residents paid for trash and recycling. And in lieu of the condos actually receiving this service, they get a credit to be able to use that money to pick up their trash and recycling at their condo association. And this is based on a direct formula of the amount of houses being serviced and the amount of units in a condo that's not technically being serviced. And that increase was because we had a large jump in the trash and recycling cost due to the new contract.
And so when that happened, then more condos decided to do it themselves and take a fee from the town?
No, we didn't see any difference this year in the amount of condos that.
This year, but in the past?
I'm not sure, no?
No.
No.
It's directly related to the cost of the curbside collection. So when the town saw a significant increase in the cost of curbside collection, the condos that are qualified for this rebate therefore saw a large rebate because it's.
So the rebate went up because the town.
Because of the cost of,
Got
yeah,
it.
the curbside collection.
As the costs go up, the rebate also goes up.
Yeah,
Right.
they go hand in hand.
Okay. And just to be clear, in the material handling and the refuse recycling collection, what I'm seeing here is maybe 150,000 increase, and the rest of this is just the way it's accounted for?
Essentially. I
Yeah.
mean, we added leaf collection, yard waste collection, and park rubbish collection that had not been
In that category?
in those contracts.
In those contracts?
Right.
Okay.
So they get their own contracts, their own costs.
Right.
Some of that service had been, the leaf collection had been included in the curbside collection. We took it out when we went when we went out to bid for curbside collection, so it needed a new service provider.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, all set. Other questions? On the operating, we'll move to capital on page 47. And we're showing sinking fund.
Yeah, so we
Request of $180,000.
We established a sinking fund for ultimate replacement of the carts, I believe in year 9. And that was voted on and approved that process was voted on and approved last year. So we initiated funding of the sinking fund in a prior fiscal year, and we're proceeding with the historical plan.
Okay, questions on the capital? Request of $180,000. Okay. Jim?
Yeah, just to confuse everybody a little more, Tyler also has a request for EV charging stations, but sort of in the haste of trying to get it into the capital request, when I put it in under finance, but it's not really mine, it's his, but it was his request for the EV charging stations, which is on page 49 in the capital.
Okay, it looks like 50,000 you're asking for that?
Correct. So this current year, actually, it was when I first started last year, we finished putting online 4 different EV charging stations. And the idea was to look into the town center this current upcoming year and try and find anywhere from 2 to 4 locations that would be a good spot for EV chargers. And if you went back and looked at what we paid for the last EV chargers, it could be $25,000 each one, unless we wind up getting incentives that could push it down as low as $5,000, or we also paid upwards of $15,000. We wanted to make sure we could hit at least 2 if we even didn't get any incentives, so that we could push forward EV cars in town and have a place that we can charge those in the town center and as close to town hall and the community house as possible.
Okay. Questions on this request? Questions from the public, RTM members? Okay, I think you're good. I just want to compliment Paul, you and your team and the department on their implementation of we were here this time last year, and it was like a big project, and I was impressed.
I appreciate it.
Good job.
Thank you. Well, couldn't have done it without
Yeah,
Tyler and the first selectman.
Yeah.
And a lot of other people in town hall.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no, that's
we-
good.
A lot of big projects right away.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. Next up is police services, page 31, 32. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening.
You're here solo?
Yeah, I think I should be good. On page 31 of the operating budget, in our personnel line, you'll see an increase there. That is for the 2 requested police officers, 2 additional police officers to our staff. We have discussed this in the past. On our website, there is a very comprehensive document of the growing demands of police service in town for those, the viewing public that want to review that. If you go down a little bit more, there's just some contractual decreases as our staff ages out and some retire. Some benefits that were in the earlier collective bargaining agreements that are no longer in play. I'd like to point out in the line, the stipends line, it was roughly $4,500. What that was our previous crime analyst salary. They had taken on a role with our accreditation. That employee has since left. We changed that salary structure in the job responsibilities and have a new employee, so that line remained. I put that down into page 32 in our safety supply. That account is used for our firearms training, ammunition, and as the term goes, safety supplies, other equipment utilized by the police officers, and that needed a little bump. So that's where that 4,500 went. Staying on 32, radio communication system expense, that is basically our Motorola contract that has our software updates and some computer hardware upgrades. One upgrade that they just finished a couple weeks ago. That's a yearly contract. Also within there is our fiber transmission line fees. All our radio repeating sites and remote sites are fed back by a more robust system now. We went over to fiber, and there was a slight increase there. So there's a $15,000 increase in that line attributed to basically the contract, but also the monthly expense of the fiber, which is a much better system for us. So that's the operating budget in a snapshot. All the remaining items there are at a zero increase. In the capital page 72, if you look at the fixed license plate reader and camera system, I have this out into next year, but I just want to bring it to the attention of the board. I think it's something as a community we need to look at. What this would be is fixed license plate readers that would be put throughout town in areas that we designate, preferably with our higher traffic volume counts. A lot of the communities have embraced this technology due to the increase in the stolen cars. Basically, it gives us another set of eyes out there, and it would notify us of cars that were wanted for felonies, missing persons, and stolen vehicles. So that's something to keep on the radar as we move forward in the next fiscal year.
Chief, I was showing that as fiscal 26 on this one. Is that
Oh,
it?
I'm sorry, yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
So that's out
We're-
the next
yeah.
year? But it's just kind of like on the radar?
Yeah,
screen
just
as
throwing
well
out there in
as-
the 5-year capital for it.
Okay, got it.
The big one that jumps out at you is the police boat replacement. Back in November, we had a survey done on the police boat, and unfortunately, that report didn't come back all that favorable. We had some concerns, or the report had some concerns with the age of the vessel, as well as some moisture that was within the hull transom and the hull bottom. It is a 26-year-old Boston Whaler Justice. We put it in, obviously, through the summer months and remove it, but it's 26 years old. My understanding also with this style or specific model vessel, that the fuel tank is encapsulated within foam, and the fuel tank is at its life expectancy at this point. So we felt it was prudent to bring this forward, because we can anticipate that this aging vessel is going to need repair and/or could be taken out of service due to some of these issues. Also point out that, the vessel isn't necessarily the best for the use that we do. We're predominantly in Long Island Sound, and it was recommended a larger vessel would be better for our type of operation. This boat was identified to be what they call a safe boat. It's a public safety specific boat. It's used by the Coast Guard and many other port security agencies. That is estimated to be roughly $515,500 to $515,000. And unfortunately, I'll mention when we talk about the police cars, a boat isn't something we can just go get. There's a lead time, obviously, as you can imagine, for something of this magnitude. So there's an estimated 1-year lead time. So in order to be proactive and be prudent, that's why this is included in this year's capital. On from there, go down to our basic, just The ballistic replacement fund, that's a 5-year cycle. That contribution has changed slightly. Speed detection and warning devices, that's the speed signs and the radar that are utilized by the police officers. We've gotten some good feedback and results from that program. And then basically just the ask for the police vehicles and the associated upfitting. We continue to struggle with shorter production windows for the police-specific vehicles and different manufacturers. We will be going out to bid for a few from this fiscal year's money, but there's long lead times with these, there's long upfitting delays, so we continue to struggle with them, and as in everything it seems to be nowadays, the costs continue to rise every year with that. So with that, that's the operating and the capital.
Okay. Questions from the board? Victor?
Chief, is there a trade-in from the old police boat? It seems like it would be worth quite a bit of money.
If I recall in the report, the estimated market value would only be about $25,000. Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know if that's specific to the vessel itself, not the engines. I know the engines were replaced probably 7 years ago, so there might be substantial value there, but nothing that's going to make a significant impact. No.
Okay, thanks.
Harry? No, good. Cam, you good? Questions from the RTM members or members of the public? Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a very quick question, Chief. On your capital request for vehicles, how many cars do you want for next year, please?
It stays consistent at the 5-car rotation.
Okay.
In this, it would be, one would be a detective unmarked vehicle. We have an aging vehicle in that fleet. So the way our fleet is composed of the ones that you see on the road that you would associate with a police car, but we also have the detective cars and some admin. So before marked police vehicles to rotate the old ones out.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? All right, Chief, you're all set on that budget. We'll go to special detail on page 33. Request is $525,000.
Yeah, that's just
the pass-through. It's pretty active. That's what are we running this year for special detail?
Check. Probably, we hit almost $1 million last year.
You're up to, let's think about 411.
411, halfway through, so this may be a little under, but it's a pass-through account.
Right.
And you add, what's the percentage you add on for the, which you cover, you add on?
I'm sorry, Joe, were you asking revenue or expenditures?
Both.
Okay.
Because they're a wash to some extent, right?
Yeah, except for the timing and collection. So the 411 was the actual revenue that was, I'm sorry, that's the expenditure, so let me find the revenue.
You charge for the price of the vehicle plus the personnel.
Yep.
Plus overhead and, I wouldn't call it profit, but
Administrative fee.
administrative fee.
Yeah.
What's the administrative fee?
Yeah, somewhere.
17.
17 maybe.
17%? Might be a little low, but, okay. I think I'm good, Jim. All right. Any other questions or comments on this budget? No, good.
No.
All
All
set,
right,
thanks,
good evening,
Chief.
thank you.
Take care. Next up is emergency management, page 34. Total request of $30,500. Good evening.
Good evening.
Chief, Commissioner.
The emergency management budget is 0% increase this year. We're able to achieve that through the reduction in some licensing fees for the software product we were using. We just didn't need as many once we gained a little bit of experience from it. And this account is reimbursed at 50% through the EMPG grant.
What's that grant again?
The Emergency Management Preparedness Grant from the state.
Okay.
It's a federal grant that the state administers to the municipalities.
And that's ongoing?
Yeah, so we do have to go through a process of reimbursement for that, but we have been receiving what we put in for. So.
Okay, questions on this budget request at $30,500? Questions from RTM members, members of the public? Okay, all set on that. We'll move on to fire protection, page 35 and 36.
Okay, so the budget you have before you is without the requested personnel. We're going to discuss that as a separate part of our presentation tonight at the request of the Finance Department. So this budget essentially is your contractual obligations on the personnel side. We had some reductions as well, but the increases are typically at the 2.5%, which is what the union contract currently calls for. And then in the wages and salaries, you'll see it's a little bit more. That's a result of the step increases. So we have, I think, 3 employees that do about a 10% step for the next few years. And some of the reductions were the ability of some of our paramedics to be able to drop that, so they no longer earn that stipend. So we were able to reduce that a little bit. And then as well as longevity, which is, again, something that as people retire, it's not offered in the union contract anymore. So that personnel increase was 2.7% overall. And then on the non-personnel side, we have about a 4% overall increase. Again, a lot of these accounts have been kept over the years as close to 0% as possible, but the inflationary environments really caught up with us. The largest increase is, as typical, is the hydrants and mains, which is in our account, so even a small increase in that account is a rather large number. So I budgeted a 6% increase, and I based that on historicals, and that's $53,910. And then the purchase services, we also increase to try to keep up with our inflation and our experience that we've had over the this last year has been pretty large with the amount of apparatus repairs. We'll talk a little bit more about that under the capital account.
So just reiterate the $124,000 that's in the increase in salaries, that represents?
That's the 2.5% increase in the union contract, as well as step increases, which are 10% a year.
Okay.
Joe, and in your budget book and to the board, the book that I sent you that we typically had sent in the past,
right,
that actually lists individuals and their salaries and their step increase.
Gotcha. Okay. And so we're showing also a contingency. Are you seeing that?
Yeah, so the contingency is our personnel and staffing request. We did make the presentation earlier in the year to the board and to the RTM. This is the phase 1 where we are requesting to hire 16 EMTs, and those essentially creating an EMS transport division. This does a couple of things for us. We are in need of staffing, and it's compounded by the decrease in the volunteers. Even though we bring volunteers in the door every year, we've had a net decrease each year. So it's not getting any better. And on top of that, the increased call volume. The contract has long called to hire firefighter paramedics, and in working out with the union, we feel that this will allow us to hire EMT. They will not have firefighting responsibilities. It's a significantly less salary for the individuals, which equates to about $710,000 a year compared to the equivalent number of firefighters. So over 10 years, it's almost $7 million, I believe. The other thing is it allows us to utilize the personnel in a much more efficient manner. Right now, if we have an emergency medical call, we're taking 2 firefighter paramedics out of town for that transport. In this regard, we are able to only have to use the paramedics when they're necessary, and we would only be sending 1 along with the 2 EMTs in the ambulance. I realize it is a significant amount of money that we're asking for, but it is certainly a critical need that we've identified, and I hope that you will look favorably upon it. The ambulance is a driver of revenue. It's certainly not going to pay 100%. It's an offset. It's about a 28% offset in our operating budget. And this year, we expect to earn about $2.5 million from that. So last year it's probably going to be more than 2.2, but that's where before the audit things stand. But in speaking with the billing company, I just met with them yesterday, and our revenue coming in the door is more robust than it was last year for the time of year. So again, it's an offset to the service we provide.
So you did present us with the breakdown of the $1,838,000, and that includes the increase in the operating budget of $1,003,000. Okay.
This is just the one page.
Yeah, the one page, yeah.
This is the gap.
Okay. Pam, you have one of those? So the $1,003,000 is really the operating request. And tell me about this half-pay earnings per position. I didn't quite understand what that piece was.
Okay, so our EMTs are not exempt like the firefighters are under the Fair Labor Standard Act. They would earn 2 hours, because they're working 42 hours a week as opposed to 40 hours a week, 2 of those hours are paid at half pay. So they get time and a half for two of those hours because they're not exempt like the firefighter positions are.
Okay. And then you're estimating the personnel, the non-personnel cost, the fringe to be at $530,000.
Right, and we worked with HR and finance to develop that budget based on the numbers that we're paying for our benefit package today.
Okay. And tell me about the associated increase in revenue with this?
So the revenue increase really is just based on the call volume, Joe. So our call volume has been going up every year, and the number of transports we do every year. So the more transports we do, the more revenue we take in. It's really just call volume driven in the personnel. So it's not going to be like we bring in these personnel and we'll be able to generate more revenue. It's strictly based on the call volume. So the more calls we have, the more personnel we need to cover those calls. And subsequently, we will see an increase in revenue based on the number of transports. And we also get we apply to the state of Connecticut every year for the minimum allowable rate. And so far, we've received an increase. This year is no different. We bill more per year than we did the previous year for the transport.
Yeah. And what's their collection rate?
For the money that they get in the door, it's about 98% lately.
Yeah.
And then, so what does that mean, the money we get in the door? So we bill out a lot more than we actually get in, but because about 60% of our payer mix is Medicare, Medicare basically says this is what we will pay.
Right,
so that's where, so once you have those adjustments, the money in the door is about 98%.
Okay. Okay, questions on the operating budget, including the new request?
Just curious about the career path for the EMTs. Do they typically stay as career EMTs? Do they go into nursing? Do they go in, would be a pipeline for firefighters?
All of the above.
All of them, okay.
And we have, what we do have is we have we instituted, even with our part-time EMS-only employees, a pathway for them to become career firefighter paramedics if they so choose. But it is a competitive process like any other, where there's not a guarantee for them, but they get the benefit of having the internal only before we should look outside.
Right, so that would help
So-
with the
And
staff.
we also encourage it, and we have training programs and whatnot, so there is a pathway, but, and there are people out there who, that's their career path. They'll be an EMT, and that's, do I see a higher turnover rate than perhaps our firefighter paramedics? Yeah, I imagine there will be, but, it's every way we've looked at it, we've tried to come up with ways to make it sustainable.
Okay.
But it is a new endeavor.
Yeah. Other questions? Jeff?
Joe, Chief, regarding the stipends, you reduced it by $8,000. You said
Yep.
firefighter paramedics aren't renewing their paramedic license.
A few of them, the contract says after 15 years, you can request to drop, and a lot of them are choosing to drop.
I understand it's a big responsibility.
We have a minimum amount. We can only, we have to maintain a minimum of 24 on the force, and we're above that now, but.
So there's nobody new coming in that would still need that?
Well, when the
stipend?
new one, yeah, so what will happen is if they continue that, if the senior people continue to drop, we'll end up at the minimum. So the new people coming in on the bottom are always firefighter paramedics.
Right. Regarding the plan, the money in the contingency, the firefighter paramedics are coming off the ambulance and going to a pump to assist
They're
with-
gonna go on an engine.
Correct.
And then what we'll do is we'll have one extra, well, not really extra, but of the 4 we're taking off, 3 are gonna go to a pump. The single one will go to engine 1, and they'll be more like a utility person. So when we frequently need to take personnel off a firefighting unit to assist the ambulance with a critical call,
Right.
or to fill out an ambulance crew, or anything along those lines, we're going to put them on engine 1 because it's more likely that person will be coming off. So engine 1 will still have a crew that can operate without any reduction in service.
So they won't get like redeployed like to Indian Neck and that, to expand those hours down there? 'Cause right
Well,
now-
once we're successful in doing this, the plan is to staff that 24/7 and
Correct.
redistrict. And at some point, we may even consider moving one of the ambulances. It would make more sense once we go out east, but
Right.
the overall plan is to not only increase the staffing, but increase the ability to respond in a more timely way by allocating the resources to the outlying stations, so everything's not coming from headquarters.
So after that is established, if everything goes the way it's planned, does that mean Volunteer Company 9 is going to be not in service any longer?
They're going to be merged with Company 2 and 5. That's my plan, and the reason for that is honestly, there's about 6 members down there today, and they miss a good portion of their calls, 5. The same is what's happening in Short Beach. There's only 4 members.
Right.
Now, from your own experience, you know that these companies operated with 40 active members
absolutely.
in the past, and it's way too small of a number to give us any type of reliability. What I'm trying to do is bolster the existing volunteer companies. So even if this plan was completely, filled out, we still need those 2 companies. We have 4 right now, and at the end of everything. there'll
Right,
be
I
2.
understand you're not pushing out the volunteers, that's not what I'm saying, and
Yeah.
I understand that it's the way of the world today. Some things that go through my mind is other towns east of us, not meaning Guilford, but they're still operating on a volunteer basis. I don't know what they're doing, I never looked into it. I know they don't have the industry, they don't have the call volume or whatever, but, even North Branford still runs on volunteer, but it's I guess it's, somewhat amazing, but at the end of the day, you still get reciprocal agreements from East Haven and Guilford and North Branford, and
We do.
when you have working fires.
We currently use an automatic aid with East Haven, so it
Right.
covers the west end of town. Guilford's more on a working fire it triggers them to respond.
Right.
But yes, they're both career departments now, and, you know, we try to not to utilize North Branford as much, but
Well, the response time would be longer because they're volunteers, correct?
a little bit longer, and also just, you know, you're stripping resources again from other communities, and it's, you know, the bottom line is all of these communities are getting busier. I still have Madison in my text messages, and the amount of calls that their ambulance is doing now is amazing to me. It's not just a Branford problem. It's kind of just a.
I get it, it's not
trickle out,
isolated,
so,
just
yeah.
what's the best way to tackle the problem? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, other
Yeah.
questions, Harry?
Chief, over the last year, we've had many conversations about the use of the ambulance services and how many could be out at the same time. Just recently, I don't know, sounds like I always sound like I'm on Route 1 here, but caught the red light as they were going out, and two went out. One went east, one went west, and then the light proceeded, and as I was coming over Branford Hill, there was a Branford ambulance, I guess, coming from the service or whatever. So that means there were 6 people out. So what's left at the house here? If
It's a good question. You get that. So we currently staff 3 ambulances.
Right.
And then what we'll do is we'll try to staff our call-in ambulances in those cases and utilize, again, to the point I made earlier about taking the one firefighter off. We get a half a crew member to call in. We'll take one of our crew members, fill out an ambulance. It is not unusual to have all 5 of the Branford ambulances on a road and have mutual aid in the town, and we're seeing that more and more and more. For instance, you know, the other day we had that fire at Cumberland Farms. It was the fire on the roof caused by, well, as long as there's people, I'll have a job, I guess. So anyways, you know, we had one ambulance out during that time frame, and then as soon as pretty much, well, before our units cleared that call, we ended up having all 3 ambulances on the road again, you know, within an hour. So zero status is, you know, part of the issue that we're trying to cover too is just having people here. So I like to say when, you know, if we're at your neighbor's house, we're not here for you. So having that stretch is what we're missing right now. We're frequently in zero status.
I know, I don't mean to be comical with my next comment, but I think if you get the new services, you may want to park one up at the community service on 95 so that they could just head there. I mean, it just seems to be every day there are major accidents on all of our exits. And I don't know why, but there are less in Madison and Guilford. So, you know, we have that, Route 1, and the residents and business. So it's beyond the volunteer service, and you're not.
Don't forget the water.
Pardon?
Forget the water too. All the islands, the water.
The water.
We have 23 miles of,
Yeah.
you know.
And pretty soon that'll be busy.
Okay, other questions on the operating requests from fire department? Peter?
Thank you, Joe. Pete Black from 3rd District RTM again. Just through you. Tom, you've talked about the reimbursement percentage and the 28%. That's basically what we're bringing in ambulance revenue as a percentage of your operating budget. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you were to apply the number that we bring into the operating budget, that's about between 27 and 28%.
Yeah, it might actually be a little, your budget's basically 6 million and you're bringing in 2 million or a little more, so it's more like a third, but that's the budget exclusive of the fringe benefits, just to, you know, balance out on the other. But on the other hand, if we're just bringing in EMTs, the percentage that would be reimbursed as collectibles of the cost of those would be far greater than the 28%, because your 28% is for your overall budget, whereas the EMT labor cost would be directly reimbursed with every call, because they're not there to fight fires, they're just going out on calls.
Well, I mean, that's one way to look at it, but at the same time, it's going into the general fund, so it's taking care of the whole package. So that 28% is my budget today. When we add the additional personnel, that's going to probably go down a little bit, because we're paying for more people now. So.
Well, I mean, will more people mean more calls responded to and more revenue directly, or not?
Not at this point, but as we continue to increase, you're going to have the available people here to do that.
This is expanding of service more than it is expanding revenue.
Essentially, we're already kind of behind the 8 ball here, and that's what we're trying to get ahead of, and it was,
Okay, I mean, we can take this up more later, but I was just trying to flesh that out. If you're hiring more people, you can respond to more calls, which presumably means more revenue.
It's probably a marginal increase in revenue, but it's basically expanding the service.
Thank you.
So, okay, other questions on the operating? So then we'll move to capital.
If you want to start with the fire apparatus sinking fund.
Sure. Based on your handout, or is that consistent with the pages 8 through 12? I'm just trying to see what makes sense in the book.
They should be.
They should be consistent.
consistent, but it may be easier to just look
Yeah.
at the.
Okay. Sure, we'll take your lead on this.
So the fire apparatus sinking fund is just that, it's a sinking fund. However, we made our most recent purchase, which was ordered, I think, almost 2 years ago now, and it's not due till 2025. That vehicle cost was $899,000 for a new pumper to replace engine 1. It also, we were looking in this current budget to replace the 2012 Tahoes, and then we would downgrade the others to the town fleet. We were only able to purchase one so far. We're still looking for two of those Tahoes, but that after that purchase, that leaves us about $168,000 in our closing balance, which if you carry over, we're looking to purchase another engine this year, so that's why such a big number. I imagine that's not going to end up as a sinking fund number if it's approved, but the need is there. And what we've been trying to articulate over several budget cycles now is to remind everybody we had purchased 4 major pieces of apparatus in a very short period of time back in the 1997 to 2001 timeframe, and all of those are starting to age out now. And so we need to catch up. And unfortunately, what happened is, we've seen a 40% increase in the cost of apparatus just since the COVID year started. So about between 2019 and now, it's gone up that much. It's the same thing with the ambulances, but not to the degree. But it's not only the increased cost, but it's the increase in the time. It used to take, from the time you would approve it and I ordered it, it was about a year to get the apparatus, and now we're talking about 3 years. So it's a big lead time, and it's a lot of money. I recognize that. But
So how do you buy something next year?
You have to put it out to bid. A lot of them, we're putting a kind of a caveat in their contracts. We haven't experienced that yet. If you remember, we had a pretty solid, we went through the bidding process, we had a solid price, and they are going to have to eat any increased costs on their end. So I've heard from fellow fire chiefs that some other manufacturers have had, to basically say, we can't build your truck for this, and they've had to go back to the well. I don't anticipate that happening. Heard that when we typically have been using a couple of different manufacturers, either Spiel Smarten or Pierce or Sutphen that haven't really been doing those things, but I imagine they're gonna build it into the price.
Right. Okay.
Question on that too, Joe, please.
Sure.
So Chief, the truck that's on order that we purchased 2 years ago or put a deposit on, is that gonna replace engine 1?
Yes.
So the truck you're requesting would replace engine 2 or engine 4?
Well, again, it's kind of, on paper, yes, but in reality.
I'm just looking at the years and based on your
Right.
life.
In reality, again, and this is where we're kind of stuck in making some of these decisions right now, is that as we would expand and start putting career staff, we would probably, what we're going to do is, and this is what the commission has asked us to do, is we replace the busier engines so they go to the career people, and then we're starting to push down to the volunteers.
So you said earlier that we probably will consolidate some of the volunteer departments. Wouldn't we need to consolidate the trucks and maybe eliminate one?
We'll probably be able to eliminate one.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on the vehicle requests of $1 million for the sinking fund? Now we'll move on to the ambulance, I guess. Ambulance replacement, $75,000.
So currently, we have $2,772 in our sinking fund, but we have ordered, we have 2 ambulances on order. One is a new ambulance and the other is a remount. So we're trying to get back to just getting the sinking fund to where it needs to be, so when our next purchase, which if you look at the replacement plan, would be in the, let's see, 27, 28.
Okay. Questions on this? Move on to cardiac monitors.
There's 0 requests for that this year. We were able to catch up in that with the ARPA money.
Yep.
That also helped the ambulance fund as well, by the way. And our radio sinking fund, we're requesting $60,000 this year. The sinking fund covers annual replacement of percentage of our portable radios and our mobile radios, so we don't have to replace all at once. And then the balance carries over to hopefully build to replace some of the major infrastructure out at the various sites throughout town. We have.
So I'm not showing any purchases for this year or next year?
I did not put any purchases in. That's an oversight on my part, Joe. We did make purchases this year. We purchased 8 portables and 5 mobiles, all of which were increased our capability to communicate with our mutual aid departments, because North Branford went to they went to the state backbone, so it's a totally different. So we were purchase radios to allow our command staff to be able to communicate with them, and then even our radios that we consider have reached their obsolescence for the firefighters, we hand those down to, like, for instance, engineering and other departments that can still talk, but they don't need the ruggedness of a fire radio anymore.
Okay. So
This stuff does get used.
So
for
you
many
would
years.
actually be spending the 60, this current?
No, I don't expect to spend the 60, probably about 30,000 on that.
For next year?
For next year.
And this year you're expecting to spend how much?
This coming year is 30,000. This year, I forget what I spent. I'd have to look.
I'm just trying to reconcile to that. Maybe you could just update that first. That way we get an idea what you're spending.
How much we're spending per year?
Well, yeah, because you're showing like a flow
Yeah, we
of
spent,
purchases and funding.
yeah, I didn't put in the purchasing. That was my oversight.
That's all right. You can work with Jim or Catherine on this.
Yeah, no, I could give you those numbers.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Not a big deal.
Yep.
So just for tighten it up. Questions on this? What else?
Self-contained breathing apparatus, another, it was a sinking fund that we had instituted believe, in 2020 with the goal of being able to replace everything in 2025. Again, the pricing that we're seeing now has exceeded our initial estimates, so we're actually increased the request in that fund to $125,000 from the $85,000 it was for the next 2 years, so that we can actually reach the goal. We recently got updated pricing, so we know kind of where we are. I'm honestly just as shocked at you at the amount of increase that we've seen in the industry, but some of it is just, it's the reality of it, and there's, it's, one of the things we're doing to try to help with some of this is we applied for Assistance to Firefighter grant for equipment this year. If we're successful, then we'll probably ask you to transfer this sinking fund money into the apparatus fund to help us offset, but it's a competitive grant and there's no guarantee that we're going to get it. So, we want to try to stay on course as much as possible, and if we're successful, then that would be, that would be a bonus.
How much is in the sinking fund now?
There's a little over 400,000.
And are we spending anything in this year?
No, this is to build for a replacement in 2025.
2025, okay. Okay.
The rest of the pages are just informational, and they're, so you can see some of the trends.
Call volume is up. This is fire department, this includes all.
This includes all calls, so it's continued to go up. We haven't seen the effect of some of the buildings that are being built now and occupied and coming online, but we expect to.
Okay. Okay, questions, additional questions from the board? On either the operating or the capital?
No.
Questions from the public? Tracy? RTM members?
Thank you. Tracy Everson, 5th District, RTM. I'm wondering, Chief, if you're going to, the town received opioid settlement money, about $86,000. I guess that came out in 2023. Is some of that coming to your department?
I honestly don't know the answer to that at this point. I know it was recently announced. I don't know that, Jamie, I don't think we've seen any of that money yet, or?
We did get some.
Yeah, we did get some.
We don't.
Yeah, he
Okay,
doesn't have, he doesn't have it.
He doesn't have it.
No,
So is the town working on a plan, or is it?
Basically, the police department is working with the counseling center.
Okay.
They haven't come up with a plan as of yet. They've explored a couple things, and the more they explore it, it hits a dead end, but the fire department doesn't have any of it. So he really wouldn't know about it, so.
Oh, okay. I would think if the ambulance is going,
Well,
or is it too late by the time they get there?
Well, I mean, some of the things that you could use that money for, which they do already, is Narcan, for example.
Right.
But I think that, when the opioid dollars started coming in, the first selectman sent out a note to various departments that I think would be being able to program that dollars. So basically, I know Deputy Chief House was working with Peter Semino on that, but, some towns have used it just for Narcan, but you already have Narcan in your medical supplies.
Yeah, I think what, so the police department carries Narcan now as part of this program, right? So we're trying to get Narcan into the community, we're trying to get it to our first responders, which includes our police department, which typically wasn't providing medical care, but the laws change, they can give Narcan, so they actually use more Narcan than we do typically. because they get there quicker in often cases because they're on the road. And so that's kind of the goal with the Narcan. I do know that what Jim, you're referring to is that they're trying to really look at the prevention side of things and that they want to target the dollars there. And we're involved to the extent that we are involved in the discussions and what we can do to help. But as far as any money, not at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions, comments from the public or RTM members? Okay, I think we're all set, Chief, Commissioner, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, so we'll recess for 5 minutes.
wires, I got
Okay. Alice. Okay, we're going to resume the public hearing with the recreation presentation on page 46. Welcome.
Welcome, everyone. All right. So I'll take care of the total personnel services on top, which actually were contractual obligations with our union members, and on the wages and salaries. We did have a decrease in longevity. We had the loss of, if you remember, Andrea Kenny, program supervisor, since we have filled that position just recently, but there's no more longevity in the contracts. So that was that number will continue to decrease as years go on and through attrition when people move on. And the reason that it's a little bit, you'll see a higher rate is that, again, we were behind on a couple contracts we just settled. Everyone is up to date now. That also took into effect one of the positions. There was a significant increase to bring them up to parity, and that ended up being a total of 5.9% with the increases. So it was over a 2-year period. Under non-personnel, the only increase that we're asking for in this year, and it's pretty much of a guesstimate, kind of seeing how what happened last year was we put in a new splash pad, as you know, down at Foot Park, and it was very successful. We opened it up the last day of July, so we didn't get the full summer in, but we got almost a half a summer. We actually went late in September and opened it, and it was a very big success. So I think that as time goes on, that could possibly increase. It is controlled all the time, so it doesn't just constantly run. It runs when, the button's pushed and there's people there. So other than that, and it shuts off at nighttime and then doesn't run to the next day. So that's what we're asking for, the increase in that line item, and under operating a total of 4.4%.
Okay, so total budget request for operating is $1,328,353. Increase of $56,462. Questions from the board on the operating budget? Questions from RTM members of the public on the recreation operating? Okay, we'll move on to capital, which I'm showing page 36 in the back.
So you want me to proceed, Joe?
Sure.
Okay. So we have a total ask of $455,000 in this fiscal year coming up. I do want to comment on that. Out of the $455,000, $375,000 will be by looking forward to hopefully getting a state bond pretty soon. Right now, we're still waiting to hear, and also on the Foot Trust. As you know, every year we put in dollars for that. So out of the $200,000 for the Veterans Memorial Park Playground replacement, 175 would be we put in for a bond with the state. We feel pretty confident that we'll be receiving that. It's in the works right now. It's in the House of Representatives, going to the Senate next. Hopefully the governor will see fit that there was a really big need for that, with a pretty extensive bond application that we brought into them, and hopefully we feel good about that. The other $25,000 of that part would be coming out of our recreation special funds to make up that $200,000. And then also on the $150,000 you'll see for Foot Park dugout, fencing, netting, and clay renovation to the 3 softball fields down there. It's for safety netting and also some work on dugouts. And I will say again, that's part of the 175. The other 25 is, again, the Foot Park Clay Tennis Court renovations continually need some work each year. It's getting a little bit more expensive. When we started down there, it was half the cost. It's about $12,500 at the time. It's actually getting closer to $30,000 now. We just went out to bidding, and the prices came in on that. So it's a lot of work to keep those 8 clay courts, but again, they're paid for by a grant from the Foot Trust, and people really love those clay courts. So that's the $375,000 that we will be getting through non-tax dollars. And the other 2 requests is, one is I'll go down to fencing replacement for $30,000 at the various parks in town. And one comment I'll make on that: over the years, if you look forward through our, each year we come back to you for court renovations on the tennis courts. We come back to you for field renovations. We also come back for fencing repairs. But in the $175,000 that I was talking to at Foot, 150 specifically is for dugouts and fencing, and that's part of our, if you remember, we just went through a big extensive project on looking at all the fields in town, in addition to the intermediate school that was just funded. Thank you very much, and to the RTM. And we'll be moving forward on that, but we felt that there were some areas that we could look at going forward that we can possibly take care of some of these projects. Part of the projects down there was this specific safety fencing dugouts for the girls and redoing the renovations of the clay. So we really have a nice complex there. We're just trying to continue to improve that. And the last item that we have there is a vehicle replacement for $50,000. Put like a placeholder. I think we can do better than that. Obviously, we would go out to bid. We're looking to purchase our first electrical vehicle. I've been talking to some members in town on the RTM about looking into different type of cars. It doesn't have to be, we've looked at Tesla, Solitaire, there's many other ones. But as you heard earlier in the presentation from Sustainability Director, we're trying to put some more of those stations throughout town, through the center of town, one at the community house. So that would, if we were able to get a vehicle, we'd be able to do it there. We also do have one right now at Foot Park that's available to the public and ourselves. And one thing I wanted to share, I think you have in your packet, you should have had as an addition there, was our fleet at the Parks and Rec Department, all our vehicles and trucks that we have. And I just wanted to comment on the need. We have 4 administrators, excluding me, now that utilize their own vehicles. We're a lot busier, like everyone else is, since we came out of COVID, with our camps and our playgrounds. We know a lot of the funds went away. We sold out, Dale, correct, like right off the bat within our camps, like right out of the gate, because the schools were able to fund the last couple of years for their camps. So we have not just our regular summer camps for playground, we also have them for the younger children. We also have our arts and theater camp, which is, we had 80 kids in the camp last year, and we're pretty filled up on all of them already. So one thing is that we're going from here to there. They'll try to utilize my vehicle at times. I have one of the last Ford Escapes that's in service, knock on wood. It's hanging in there. It's 14 years old. I've got 96,000 miles on it. It's a great vehicle. I have no problem utilizing it, but it's kind of, with all this equipment that we have in there, it's kind of hard to get around. So we're kind of looking for another vehicle that they can share so that well, a lot of times we're going to the beaches, to the, down to the hospice pool that we run, all the playgrounds in town, in the parks, continually down to the pool and stuff, and we're bringing equipment up on the green. So we just don't have a vehicle that we can go back and forth. We thought it'd be a good opportunity. We've talked about with the board about possibly, looking towards an electric vehicle. And we know there's some opportunities out there. We thought with the stations going in, one going into the community house pretty soon would be a good timing to do that.
So you mentioned that there's an inventory in here. I didn't think we got a recap.
It should have been attached to, I thought I had attached.
I don't think we, maybe you could forward it to us. I don't
Sure.
think we have it. Okay. Questions on the capital request? Questions from RTM members of the public on the recreation operating and/or capital requests? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Alex, Dale, and Deborah. Take care. Next is Parks and Open Space Authority, page, we'll go to page 61, I believe, on that. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you.
Okay, request of 105,240 on the expenditure side.
Okay. Open space.
Okay.
I leave that portion of it to Jim. I have nothing to do with that.
Okay.
Yeah, but on the expense side, basically, the biggest increase is the $4,500 for purchase services, repairs and maintenance, and a lot of that is because we've identified various items that do need annual redoing, like line painting, mowing of various fields. We started stocking fish in supply ponds, that type of thing. And so out of that 24,000, basically 21,000 of that is recurring, every year.
Sure.
Everything else is pretty much the same. We reduced the capital outlay by 3,500 just because we're putting that into the capital budget.
Okay. Questions on the expenditure side here of 105,240. Questions from the general public or RTM members? Jim, maybe just touch on the, I see the increase in the revenue on the leases
Yes.
and the
Yeah, we actually-
royalties.
Yeah, we actually increased some of the royalties, still less than what we had earned in the prior year, but one of the things is we wanted to adjust that up based on some of the history. Then what else that does, Joe, is if you see down, the transfer out to the 700 fund.
Yep.
So that creates another $30,000 without taxing for it. Otherwise, we'd have to increase the transfer in.
Right.
And then that $30,000 that Richard has requested in the capital section, page 20, is there for various projects during parking lot, the trailheads, trail repair, and boardwalk improvement. And so you'll see that funding source is other because it's not being tax dollars.
Gotcha. Okay. So, questions on the 30,000 request?
Frank has a question.
Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted an update as to what happened in the last year, because, there was a whole bunch of things you were going to do, right? How'd you make out with all those projects? You're going to Supply Pond, Beacon Hill, Lake, Salt and Stone.
We got
How'd you
a
do?
lot done.
Yeah,
I mean, the
you
parking-
did? Good for you.
just about all the parking lots have been redone. We have new kiosks, new maps, and we've actually reclaimed some abandoned trails from years ago. I found a contractor that'll get up with the skid steer on the top of Beacon Hill and just clear all that out. So we've made quite a bit of progress. And actually, now it's just boiling down to trail maintenance, because there's increased usage, and with the weather, the rain events we're having, it's just more maintenance on that end.
Yeah.
So,
That's great. Thank you very much for the update. That's all good news.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Any other questions or comments? I think we're all set, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is
Television.
Branford Cable Television, page 28, request of $15,750, an increase of $150. Jamie, you're covering this?
Yeah, sure. The seasonal part-time help, 2.5%, 2% increase, I'm sorry. And that's for, as you know, having these meetings filmed, we used to cover under subcontracting. Now we do it under a part-time employee. And that's the only change. We're keeping the donation. I just will point to the $8,000 donation expense, which we a few budgets ago, we put in a donation to BCTV, primarily due to the loss in revenue that they've been experiencing due to cord cutting. People no longer, a large part of their revenue is derived from cable fees. And as more and more people cut their cable subscriptions, that impacts their revenue. So we kept it flat this year, another $8,000. However, we are just concerned with some legislation that may actually further impact revenue to the cable networks. I'll keep this board posted if anything changes, but at this point, we'll thought it's prudent just to at least maintain the $8,000 pending some other outcomes that may happen.
Okay. Thank you. Questions on this board? On this request from the board? Questions or comments from the RTM members or members of the public? If not, we'll move on to Board of Finance on page 13. Mr. Finch.
Okay, so this is the Board of Finance budget, which does a number of things. It funds the audit primarily and the actuarial services. The increase that you see there is we've talked in the past about the higher cost of the municipal audits. And the other thing that's worth noting is that at some point during the year, I'll be coming back with a transfer for the 23-24 year. And like I said, that's for the audit. A little update on the audit. They just finished some of their field work. We still have some punch list items. But we're hoping that we won't be nearly as far back as we were last year. So we're hoping that we're still on target to meet that June deadline. So
good.
So that's good. Then we're going to turn around with the 24 year. The Board of Selectmen had approved waiving a bit on the 24 year. So and we received the engagement letter. So we're in the process of getting that executed. And then this is for the 25 year.
Okay, request is $140,239, increase of $34,563. Questions from the board? Questions from RTM members, members of the public? All right, Jim, thank you on that. We'll go to fiscal services, page 14. Request is $648,201, increase of $93,051.
Okay, the bigger increases there are really in the non-personal area. There was a contract that is settled in the finance department budget that affected 3 employees, so that's a 1.5% increase. Those transfers were approved, I believe, last week by the RTM. So In future books, that'll be reflected, showing those transfers. That's a recurring theme we've heard on other budgets as well. In terms of the postage, that amount is actually going up, and primarily that is for the additional mailings that the tax office has been doing. And so that postage, other than mailing of the original tax bills, comes out of our budget. The equipment, the software, that number is reflects some of the, I don't know why this is ringing, but reflects some of the increases, small increases for the ClearGov. The big piece in there, which I put as a placeholder of $50,000, is something that I think is somewhat of a goal of mine down the road. Is now that we're back a few years ago, once we got back to the pension business. So just by way of background for those folks who don't know, the town of Branford about 5 years ago stopped its defined contribution. Plan. All right. Maybe I should sit up there, I don't know. The town of Branford a couple of years ago basically stopped the defined contribution plan and brought back the defined benefit plan, which essentially meant that the town of Branford is going to be in the pension business for the foreseeable future. Around that time, I was toying with the idea of looking at a pension management system. Currently a lot of the files are paper files, and we do scan many of them. But as I'm looking out down the road, anticipated turnover in the finance department. Currently, the pensions are handled primarily by 2 people in the office. And there's been a lot of turnover over the years in HR as well. And so we're kind of it when it comes to the police pension and the fire pension. And some of the software that's out there, I did get a proposal, but I only received it on Friday. So I'm not really in a position to fully present it. It was less than $50,000. That was kind of a ninth-inning decision to put a number in there as a placeholder. Depending on what package you get, it could be about $36,500. There's really 2 pieces. There's the pension administration piece, and then the other is a piece where individuals can actually access a call center for help with their benefits. Currently, the way it works now is if, let's just say, a police officer is thinking about retiring, they usually call me, and depending on what I'm doing, I ask them to be patient. And I will say that the officers have been great over the years. They've all been very patient. I reach out to Margaret's office to get their pension earnings, because my office isn't paying them. So there's that coordination piece. And then I'll run an estimate. And then some of the ones that are more complicated is when you have you have a qualified domestic relations order, and the person has a deferred retirement option plan, and those are some pieces that I usually try to get a second opinion on, because there's a lot involved there. And so, again, this would be a cloud-based system, so the records would be held in the cloud, and that they would survive obviously if the building caught on fire, et cetera. So there are some advantages to that, and I think down the road is something that the town should look at, but I haven't called any references, and I still have to get into the proposal. Another aspect of it is that they would actually pay our pensioners, whereas currently now we're using Wilmington Trust, which is a division of M&T Bank. Previous to that, we had People's Bank, but as many of you know, M&T purchased People's some years ago. And so those are some of the things that we're looking at, but again, the $50,000 was a placeholder. I think that in reality, it's probably something I might come back with in another month or 2 with a request. So,
okay. Very good. Questions on this budget? Questions from RTM members or members of the public? Okay, thanks, Jim. We'll move on to public celebration, page 49. Total request of $46,788, increase of $512.
It's a $512 increase. Again, this is the fund that does the multiple parades, and of course, the biggest piece was the fireworks. And, you know, the increase in the patriotic observances for the parade, small adjustment. You know, one of the fife and drum groups, I believe, from Chester, Connecticut, is, I don't think, participating anymore, and I think they've been replaced by the Emerald Society. And again, not too much that's changed there. And of course, the salaries is for the town band director.
Okay, questions from the board on this request, $46,788? Questions from RTM members of the public? Okay, thanks, Jim. Next, we'll move on to the sewer assessment fund, page 64. Request of expenditures, $16,495, $23 increase.
Yeah, again, there's not a lot of activity in this fund. You know, most of the assessments are getting paid down. You know, part of the audit costs go towards this fund, a small piece, and then the legal is really, it's been about the same number budgeted for a while. It really depends on whether someone is connecting to the sewer system. If that's the case, then Peter Verdun, who is their attorney, would actually put together an assessment agreement. So.
Okay. Questions from the board on this budget? $16,495. Questions from RTM members of the public? Okay, move on to pensions and contributions, page 56. The request is $6,939,068, a decrease of $180,072.
Okay, and I think Margaret's available as well to answer some of these questions too. The first one is a volunteer stipend. The chief has on many, fire chief has on many occasions talked about the number of volunteers is decreasing, and you know, as a result, the amount of stipends we would be paying out are decreasing. You know, you can see we did about $26,250 and $22,23. Obviously, we're hoping that you know, we get more activity in future years, and the budget reflects that. But based on what the chief was saying earlier tonight, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. The retirement for municipal employees, that actually is a little bit lower. This board and the RTM may recall last year, just around the time the RTM was adopting its budget, the state controller's office had talked about some of the changes in the rates, which would basically be a savings to the town and the Board of Education. We took a piece of that savings last year. We didn't take all of it. And so you could see that number is actually decreasing. The police, this number is kind of a placeholder. I spoke to the actuary on Friday. They're putting the finishing touches on the valuation. So this is kind of a placeholder. It's a little deceiving because when you look at page 56, it shows let's just call it a $70,000 increase. But part of that is because the current year budget, earlier in the year, because we had money that was unspent in contingency and flowed back to fund balance, we actually used that to put it into the police pension plan to reduce the liability. Absent that, you would be looking at an increase from $1,424,960, which is the 22-23, to $1,650,000, which is about a $250,000 increase. And so, you know, so this is an area that you know, the performance, we did have a bad year, remember, everybody remembers when stock and bond prices went down at the same time. We do smooth them. We do have a 5-year smoothing, so that does help with some of the cost. But and you may remember that, probably worth mentioning because I don't expect everyone to remember every piece of a 9-page document. But one of the things that we talked about in terms of the town's finances and challenges going forward was to explore ways to possibly improve the funding of that plan. It hovers around the 60-ish to in the 70% range, but that might be something we look at in a future year, perhaps not this year, but maybe next year. Look for 2 years out to look for ways to possibly reduce the annual required contribution, especially as we go into a revaluation year. So I think as an overall theme, this budget isn't to talk about revaluation, but I think when you start looking at areas like this where you have some of these liabilities, it might be worth looking at strategies because anytime you improve the funded ratio, the amortization on your unfunded liability drops. So it's like prepaying your mortgage in effect. And then the volunteer fire plan, that is actually lower as well. Our contributions would be dropping there. But again, some of this, what this would do is to try to improve the funding ratio of that plan. The town has made supplemental appropriations over the years in the fire plan, but that plan is actually better funded, but it's a little harder to measure because about volunteers participating, not participating, and predicting who's going to actually become vested at any given time. But it's a much smaller plan, so that's. Everybody knows what Social Security is, so I kind of skipped over that.
Gotcha.
And again, this doesn't include, probably bears repeating again for the folks at home, when the fire department talked about the $1,898,000, the $507,000 in benefits and stuff, depending on how the Board of Finance and the RTM, where they come down on the chief's plan, that contingency account within the fire department budget will have to be unpacked, and then some of that's going to flow into this, as well as medical benefits and some of the other areas. So,
Okay, thanks, Jim. Questions on this budget? Request $6,939,068. Questions from RTM members of the public? Set. Okay, very good. We'll move on to employee group insurance, page 57. Request $6,219,821, a decrease $154,879. Jim?
yeah, and I'm going to let Margaret start off, and then
Hello, Margaret. How are you?
Very good, thank you. It's nice to be here. It's nice for Jim to let me tell you about the good news. We're very pleased with our employee benefits insurance plans for this coming year. As you can see, there's a total increase of only 1%. This is primarily due to the fact that we did a marketing of our Anthem insurance, dental insurance, as a self-insurance product. And we are staying with Anthem now because of the low increase that we receive from them. We are also very pleased with the state partnership plans, only a 2% increase in medical insurance, which is pretty amazing if you know anything about the market these days. And with the fire has their own plan, a separate medical plan, which we went to a year ago, is doing very well. They don't renew until January, so we don't really know what to project. So we've been a little conservative with that and looked at that at a 7% increase. This is the life and disability also came in flat at $32,000. So we're feeling very comfortable overall in what we're suggesting for the next year.
Okay, very good. And any questions on the health insurance side of it?
Jim, do you want to add anything?
no, that's fine.
Questions from RTM or members of the public on the health insurance premiums? Transfer out to OPEB, you want to cover
Yeah.
that as well?
Yeah, I'll take that one, I think, right, Margaret?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so basically, that reflects the updated valuation and our funding levels, as you know, that, we're very well funded there.
Right,
So
right,
that
so-
we're getting the benefit, this is the most recent valuation since we've increased the funding there, so.
Right. So it's that line item is 12,000, it's down 216,000, so we're happy with that one.
It helps take the sting out of the police increase. Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to municipal insurance on page 58. Total requested $2,784,390.
Well, I don't need to tell you all, this is a municipality with lots of risks in terms of the types of insurances we need to help cover ourselves. So the property casualty, inland marine, general liability, law enforcement, automobile liability, public officials liability, employment practice liability, crime, umbrella insurance, excess workers' comp, cyber insurance, and pollution, as well as flood insurance, drone insurance, professional liability insurance are all included in this. The market in this area is skyrocketing. I think we've done fairly well this year. This is only an estimate. We don't have our final numbers yet. We won't have those until another month and a half, which is normal. But from our broker, this is our best estimate at the time.
And what about the workers' comp?
And the workers' comp is included also in there. That's our excess workers' comp insurance.
Right, and then we're moving out 900,000 into the fund?
Yes.
How's the fund doing?
The fund is doing reasonably well. The other thing that's helping the fund is higher interest rates. So, whereas in the past, we didn't get much income, so from an income side, it's done well. The Board of Ed, the last couple meetings we had did very well, although I think they've increased their payroll, so that offsets some of it. So when you kind of look at what's coming into the fund, you're looking at our 900,000. The Board of Ed puts in about 239,000, and then on the other side of it, we have the excess insurance, and then we have the actual fees for our third-party administrator, which is Workers' Comp Trust, which Mr. Shelton sits on the board of.
Sure.
And we also have, then we actually have to fund what the claims are expected to be. For about 4 years now, we moved to having a evaluation of that, which basically helps us determine our funding levels. And so it's also, we have to pay into the second injury fund up at the state as well. So there's a couple of different areas where we contribute to. And then the other piece was heart and hypertension, which there is no insurance for. And so basically, with that, we set aside a certain dollar amount. The year is going to escape me, but it goes back into I think it's 96, is it? Right? So it's for police and firefighters that were hired after a certain date, and if they get they have heart and hypertension, or they basically get sick, and it's perceived that they have, it's not perceived, they determine there's a diagnosis that they have it, it's presumed to be job related. So you can't say that, I could think of a lot of stressful situations to describe, but none of them would actually offset the ability to discount the fact that this was caused by work. And so we've basically been putting in the $275,000 a year. What we try to do is we try to be fairly aggressive in settling these cases, and generally the best time to settle a case is when someone's retiring. So what we try to do is basically, okay, they're represented by attorneys, the town is represented by attorneys. Is there an interest in settling the case? And myself, Margaret, The attorneys look at this, the Board of Selectmen approve the settlements, and essentially what we're trying to look at is this a fair deal? You know, so this liability comes off the balance sheet, and this person gets cash. And sometimes we structure it over, you know, a period. You know, let's just say, I've seen it in the past where we might do a payment in the fall and in like the new year. So it's 2 different tax years for the person getting the money, because the H&H benefits are taxable.
Right.
And so we try to work on in that regard as well. And also the Workers' Comp Trust is also our third-party administrator on the hypertension claims.
Okay, good, thank you. Questions on this municipal budget? Questions from the RTM members or members of the public? Okay, thank you, Jim. And next is labor relations on page 20.
We'll keep this short. We're recommending no increase, so keep it the same this year. We do have 4 contracts that are still going to be renewed. Water treatment supervisors, and currently police and dispatchers.
So the request is $93,600, no increase.
That's correct.
Okay, questions from the board? No. Questions from the RTM members of the public? Okay, we'll move on to human resources, page 30.
Again, there's not very many changes here. Obviously, the first is regular wages and salaries. Those are, the 4.1% is due to a contracted step increase for 1 employee that I have. The others are 2.5%. I'm just moving some money from professional development to travel because, as you all know, we're doing more local professional development than we are doing far away, so that's much less expensive for the town. I'd just like to move that on to travel. And then the 4% increase is due to the HRS product that we have, which is ADP Workforce, which is a fairly substantive product that we use.
Total request, $358,669, increase of $13,341. The questions from the board? Questions or comments from the audience, RTM members? Okay, thank you, Margaret.
Thank you very much.
So that covers our agenda for tonight. I'll entertain a motion to go into recess until tomorrow night.
So moved. I'll second.
Moved by Harry, seconded by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie?
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.